Pittsburgh and giving us some insight into what they've experienced in Pittsburgh and what they've accomplished as well. Our last speaker is Tish Odell. She is the Ohio organizer for CELDF and co-founder of MADION, Mothers Against Drilling in Our Neighborhoods, which successfully passed a Bill of Rights in the city of Broadview Heights, Ohio, in 2012. Everyone, let's give Tish Odell a warm welcome.
Thanks, everybody. I have a tough act to follow here with Doug. I'll try to keep up, though. I'm here to tell you an Ohio story. Okay, you heard about Pennsylvania's story, but I'm going to do Ohio's story. I'm a lifelong resident of Ohio, born, raised here. Some of you may think that's boring. Maybe it is. I've also lived in Broadview Heights for over 40 years of my life, so you may even think I'm even boringer. But what it's done is that actually I have a strong sense of community. I have a sense of pride in this state of Ohio, in Broadview Heights. I feel the need to protect my community and my state. It's important, and not for any monetary reason. 4 years ago, I was woken up to the fact that Broadview Heights was under attack. And that's not too strong of a word. We really were under attack, and we were under attack from drillers. It's what they call urban drilling. Broadview Heights is only 13 square miles. It's not very big. It's just 11 miles south of Cleveland. We have homes on half-acre lots. We're a typical suburban residential community. You probably have a lot of homes in Columbus that are similar. But what isn't typical is the oil and gas wells in people's backyards, next to schools, next to playgrounds. Not typical is the big industrial equipment coming into our neighborhoods, the strange workers, the open frack waste pits in residential backyards. We started experiencing accidents and spills. 200 gallons of oil leaked into a creek, actually in the community west of us, but you know, creek's water tends to flow. So it flowed into Broadview Heights. We had people being evacuated from homes. 10 o'clock at night on a school night. They smelled odors. People's eyes were burning. Their throats were burning. This is not typical for a residential neighborhood. We also had a well blow next to a school. Kids are outside at recess, and there's an oil and gas mixture spewing on the kids on the playground. So people are waking up. The promise of the royalty money, free gas, wasn't working anymore. You know, being told by the government that we have strict regulations, don't worry. We had evidence they weren't working. So what did we do? We did what probably most people think to do. Doug mentioned, you go to your local government, your mayor, your council. Yeah. We said, you got to stop this. This is ridiculous. They said, we can't do anything. We can't help you. Our hands are tied. The state has taken away control. You need to go to the state. So being the dutiful, you know, citizens that we were, and obedient, that's what we did. We went and met with state reps. We went and met even with Senator Sherrod Brown, went to his office, had a one-on-one meeting with him. You know what we got? Wide-eyed stares. They just stared at us. We're bringing them all this documentation of this bad stuff going on in our neighborhoods, and we thought they'd be like, oh my God, thank you for bringing this to us. We have to fix this problem. That's not what we got, though. Once in a while, there'd be a few words that popped out of their mouths, but the words were jobs, economy, tax revenue. Nothing about protection, environment. Those words never came out. So then we go back to Broadview Heights. We're a little disappointed. Like, now where do we go? Our local officials won't help us. Our state, we know. We'll go to the Ohio EPA. That's what they're supposed to do, right? Protect the environment and us. Well, that's where we got in our mouse wheel. Some of you may have experienced this mouse wheel. We went to the Ohio EPA and they give us information about regulations on the books, and we found out that no one was enforcing the regulations. Then we talked about air quality, and they said, well, you have to go to the Cuyahoga County Health Department. So we go to the Cuyahoga County Health Department. And they go, oh, this is about oil and gas drilling? We can't help you. You have to go to the ODNR. You get to the ODNR, and they go, you have to go to the Ohio EPA. Didn't take too long. We realized, oh, we're in this mouse wheel going round and round and round and getting nowhere. Hopelessness is now setting in. Okay, we're now realizing that we have this charade and illusion of democracy. Something we've been taught to believe since, government class. We were putting on seminars and, events in our community to try and educate more neighbors. And at one of these, someone stood up in the audience and said, have you ever heard of CELDF? And we all looked at each other. We're like, no, we have no idea what that is. Well, we went to their website. We tried everything else. We figured nothing else was going to work. So we went to their website, and I guess the rest is history, at least for me. But CELDF, what they did, they reminded us in Broadview Heights of a few key phrases that we had forgotten about. Things like, we the people are born with unalienable rights. That we the people have the right to govern where we live. That we the people create government, like these buildings, to protect those rights. And that when government fails to do that, protect us in our rights, we the people have the right, we actually have the duty to alter, reform, or abolish the current government to one that does protect those rights. CELDF reminded us in Broadview Heights that these rights are higher law than any law passed by the state legislature up the street, any bureaucrats, or any regulatory agency. They reminded us that it's up to us to take charge of our communities, the place we call home. Of course, the oil and gas industry doesn't see it that way, and I know there was one quoted in your Columbus Dispatch just today. They tell us over and over the state has given us sole authority over oil and gas drilling, and they say it like real adamantly like that. Like we shouldn't even question that. And it's funny how that came about. Doug mentioned it. It's all about lobby money. They come up here to Columbus, the lobbyists with checks in hand, get your state legislators to vote their way, and all of a sudden, before we know it, we have no input. We've lost local control. No election, no one asked us, no input from the people, just like that, it's gone. Argument that the industry will give you, and I think this was in your paper today too, they say, well, we can't have a patchwork of different laws all across the state, that just won't work. Well, you know what, this is code words for them, saying, we don't want the people who live in the community to interfere with our ability to turn their community into a resource colony for profit making. Also, hear the argument that we the people can't go against state law. That's a big one. They use that all the time. You can't go against state law. And I thought, really? Even if it's a bad law? I always think of my mom who always said, well, if your friends are going to go jump off that bridge, are you going to go jump with them? I'm like, so because it's a bad law, we still have to follow it. Well, if people in the past had not had the courage to stand up and challenge bad laws, all you women standing here today and sitting here, you probably wouldn't be able to vote. You wouldn't be able to own property. If other people hadn't challenged bad laws, we'd still be separated by race. And another thing, we probably wouldn't even have weekends off. The other way that the industry keeps us from protecting our communities, and Doug talked about this was through threats and intimidation through lawsuits. And you know who does that? You know who gets their way that way? Bullies. Bullies act that way. And I taught my son at a very young age. I said, you know what, you have to have respect. Respect for other people, respect for nature, respect for rules, laws, but not for bullies. Bullies use their power to force their will and self-interest on others. Make no mistake, there was no democracy at play here. There was no vote of the people to give up their rights to the state. So who's going to help us? Is there going to be some superhero coming in with a red cape? No, I don't think so. No legislature is going to help you. No other organization out there. It's us. All of us. You can't wait for someone to give you permission to defend your home and your community. We are the ones we've been waiting for. If we don't take control, there went your microphone. If we don't take control, we're damning our children and their children to an even more poisoned world. A world with more disease, more cancer, a world with far less beauty and wonder. I don't know, I think nature's talking to me now. It's like, whoa. Yeah, like, sorry. Take it easy. Possibly a world that is very difficult for humans. Do we want to come down to a world where oppressive corporations have more right to do harm in our communities than we do to protect and preserve them? I think a lot about the future of my community, Broadview Heights. And I ask, why do the residents of Broadview Heights, why do we have to wait 10 to 20 years and suffer another 100 or 200 wells going in and then wait for the cancer clusters to show up, wait for the birth defects, increased asthma rates? Why do we have to wait to become the next Love Canal? Why do we have to watch the destruction of the community that I love and that I grew up in? So I ask you today, how much longer are you willing to wait? How much environmental harm and destruction of Columbus are you willing to sit back and watch and allow? Will fighting for your community be easy? Hell no, I can tell you from personal experience, it's not easy. We weren't willing, though, in Broadview Heights to wait anymore for the harm to continue. We placed the Bill of Rights on the ballot, like Carolyn said. 67% of the community members spoke loud and clear. They didn't want any more drilling in our community. And you know what I call that? Consent of the governed. Will there be a price to pay for attempting to save your community? Absolutely. But good and just never defeats wrong and unjust without sacrifice. The real question becomes, who will do it? Will you do it? Or will you leave it for your children and grandchildren to do? Columbus, by proposing a community bill of rights for your city, you've joined a movement to start making the change now and not waiting. You've joined all the other communities, and I want to let you know this November, Athens, Kent, Gates Mills, and Youngstown for a fourth time is going to be on the ballot again. All with their bills of rights. So, remember my last, I have a quote, a really good quote that I wanted to end with. But proposing and then passing a law by the people and for the people in the environment of Columbus is the first step to securing your rights and taking positive steps to protect Columbus from harm that will affect the generations yet to come here. And this is a Martin Luther King Jr. quote. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politics? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that it is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. Thank you. I wish you guys all luck and success. Don't give up. The fight is